Oh, I'm flossing. Tell little bitch get up. Hit it once, had a feeling nauseous.
And welcome back. It's JJ Buckets. You already know where you are, and we are ready to talk NBA playoffs today. Now, the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs is over, and now we get to the good stuff. We get to the meat of it. This is what you showed up for. The second round here in the Eastern Conference playoffs is going to feature the top 4 teams in the East, and it's a top 4 where you really feel like anything can happen because all these teams are top notch. And we've been talking about, the Eastern Conference being top heavy all year. And now we get to see it showcased as they battle it out between one another. Now, of course, you got the Bucks, you got the Celtics, you got the Sixers, and you got the Raptors left. But today, we're gonna focus in on the Raptors and Sixers, and we're gonna do a quick breakdown of that series, mostly from the Raptors side, but we'll touch upon it a bit from both sides and give thoughts on, preview of the series, what I think is gonna happen, how I see it going, what I think the major factors are for the Raptors. And yeah, let's just dive on into it. So, the Raptors in the last round, we'll start here, took on the Magic, and so many people were ready to meme this team. So many people are ready to act like the sky is falling after they lost game 1 to the Magic. And then the Raptors won 4 straight and took that series. Listen, game 1 was an absolute ridiculous shooting performance from the Magic, and it was a terrible one from the Raptors, and they still only lost that game by 3 because DJ Augustin apparently decided to channel, prime versions of Derrick Rose, any other point guard you want to throw in there. Besides the point, DJ Augustin had a great game, of course, and they took that game 1, and so many people were quick to overreact, but the Raptors steered the ship, and the Raptors genuinely dominated the rest of that series. There were a couple games that were close, but they had that series well in hand. I said at the beginning, if you actually go look at my bracket, which I have linked on my Facebook page for this channel, I always said the Magic are good enough to take a game off the Raptors because of how they've been playing at that point. That's about it. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. The Magic had one really great performance where they stole a game, and then the Raptors strongly controlled the rest of that series because they were the better team in almost every single way. And on the other side of it, the Sixers, it was kind of a similar story to what happened with the Raptors. The Nets were good enough to steal a game, and some people even had the Nets as a popular upset candidate for whatever ungodly reason. I never thought that. I thought, the Nets could maybe scare them here and there, but I thought the Sixers had the series well in hand. And, I think Jared Dudley talking all the smack that he did to Ben Simmons kind of motivated Simmons and the rest of the Sixers to really, get the reins on that series. And they, much like the Raptors, they took control. They ran away with it. It was never really in doubt that the Sixers were going to take it, if you ask me. So now you have these two teams meeting, and some people are thinking that this is a bit of a favorable matchup for Toronto. Now you're looking at the Sixers, you're looking at how filled with talent they are, Tobias, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, JJ Redick, and you're thinking, wow, favorable matchup. Where do people get that notion from? Well, a couple of interesting stats for this are the Raptors have won the last 21 of 24 matchups with the Sixers. Now I know obviously it's not a proper reflection of this team that has Tobias Harris on it now and this team that has Jimmy Butler on it now, but there were a few meetings with those guys as well. And yeah, no, 21 of 24 speaks for itself. The Raptors have done fairly well against the Sixers in the past. And speaking of, people that have done well against the Sixers, Kawhi Leonard is 13-0. 13-0 in his career against the Philadelphia 76ers. Again, I know that's not a proper reflection of, of this specific matchup of all the new talent that the Sixers have, but 13-0. Kawhi has never lost the Sixers. I'm guessing, and I'll get to it eventually, that he will take his first loss to the Sixers in this series. I don't think the series is going to be swept by any means. You know, the Sixers are way too good for that. But, you know, it does show that Kawhi and the Raptors do have some previous history, you know, with the Sixers where they have had that success. Now, speaking of Raptors success, let's talk about the keys to this series as to what is going to bring them success. So, we saw it in the last round, and we saw the Raptors really flash what has them as a serious NBA Finals contender. And one of the big keys to the series is going to be the Raptors defense. And yeah, like that defense, that's going to be what's going to win you a title. And I think there's some good advantages to Toronto in terms of how they can match up with the Sixers here. You know, everybody looks at the Sixers lineup, and it's a very good lineup, obviously. It's a very star-heavy lineup, and you might worry a little bit of how are these guys going to match up with all that star power. Well, surprisingly well, actually. Now, Kawhi Leonard has historically done extremely well on Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons just always seems flustered when he's playing Leonard. He always is turnover prone, you know, makes some bad passes, doesn't really hit a lot of shots. Now, do I think Ben Simmons is going to have a few games, maybe a game or two, where he gets his own against Kawhi? Sure, but I think historically what's happened is going to hold up here. I think Kawhi, who's dominated Simmons, is going to continue to dominate Simmons, so that's the matchup you want to start with. Now, obviously, with Kawhi guarding him, I think you're going to slide Kyle Lowry onto JJ Redick, you know, give him the task of running around with him all game as JJ looks to spot up from all the ridiculous spots that JJ can shoot from. From there on, I think Danny Green is a good matchup for Jimmy. I think you might give up a little bit there, but I think overall you don't feel bad about having Danny Green on Jimmy Butler whatsoever. Pascal should be a good matchup for Tobias Harris as well. I think those guys will really, that's going to be a huge matchup for this series in terms of, you know, which way the scales are going to tip for an individual game. But besides the point, I think another huge defensive matchup here is Marc Gasol versus Joel Embiid. Now, obviously, Joel Embiid, best center in basketball. I don't think there's really a debate about it. The only debate you could possibly have is if you consider Anthony Davis to be a center, then there's a debate. But if you don't, Joel Embiid, he's the best player at that position, bar none. Jokic is fantastic too, but again, I'm straying away from the point. And Marc Gasol is going to be tasked with slowing this guy down for this series. But Marc Gasol has historically, again, done surprisingly well against Joel Embiid. And we just came off a series where Marc Gasol absolutely dominated Vucevic. And I can't even stress how good he was against him. This guy would not get buckets until Gasol was sitting. Vucevic got the majority of his points and the majority of his scoring with somebody else guarding him when Marc Gasol was on the bench. That's how good Marc Gasol was defensively in that series. It was actually, somewhat preposterous, I think. It was ridiculous how well Gasol was playing defensively. And if he brings that same kind of intensity against Embiid, it would be fantastic. Obviously, comparing Vucevic to Embiid is like, I wouldn't say it's night and day. Obviously, both are very good players, but it's kind of like looking at a hill or a reasonably big hill versus like a mountain, And Gasol is going to absolutely have to bring his A game. But overall, I do think the Raptors match up pretty favorably here. If anything, you could always swap Danny Green onto Simmons and you have Kawhi on Jimmy Butler if Butler's having a really big game and you really want to throw your best defender there. But in any case, I think the Raptors' versatility here and I think their ability to switch is going to be huge. I think their defense has been the catalyst for a potential championship run this entire time, and I think it's going to be part of what gives them an upper hand in the series. Now, another key component to the series, outside of the defense, is going to be the Raptors' three-point shooting. I remember seeing a stat, it was early in the Magic series, that the Raptors had been the best three-point shooting team in the league since Marc Gasol has showed up. I don't know if that stat still holds up, but nonetheless, it shows you how good they've been since Gasol has been here. Even if they're not the best three-point shooting team in the league anymore since he's been here, they're still up there. And they've been very good since he's shown up, and they need to bring that same punch, you know, from three against a team that we know can score, against a team that has so many players that can give you 20 on any given night, frankly. I think you could probably say that about their entire lineup. Is you wouldn't be surprised if any of them gave you 20. You know, obviously guys are probably going to be giving you multiple 20-point games in the same game. So having that extra firepower from the three-point arc is going to be really huge here. And you know, I think they have the shooters to do it. Obviously, they have a lineup up and down that can really shoot the three ball. They just need to hit it consistently. And when they're hitting consistently and they're playing good defense, they're a very, very, very tough team to beat. And now I'm going to get to the last factor here that I think is going to really matter in these playoffs and in this series. And it's going to be Kyle Lowry's play. Obviously, we saw it in the first round when Kyle Lowry didn't play well. You know, the Raptors didn't do particularly well. But when Kyle Lowry is going, when Kyle Lowry is balling, this team is balling. We know Kawhi and we know Pascal are going to go out and get theirs. They're going to get their points. They're going to do what they need to be done. So you need that third legitimate scoring punch from Kyle Lowry. Now, I know Kyle is a guy that can absolutely affect the game positively without necessarily getting their, you know, getting scoring, getting buckets. You know, he can make absolutely massive defensive plays. He can be a great passer. He can just do so many great things for your team without actually putting the ball into the net. But if Kyle Lowry is giving you at least like a consistent like 15, 16, 17 points a game in this series, I think it makes such a big difference versus the Kyle Lowry that's going to come out there and shoot like 2 of 9 or something, you know what I mean? And I think that really is the third biggest aspect to what the Raptors need for this series to go well. Now, with all that being said, I think those are like the 3 main components of what the Raptors need to do and what the Raptors need to look out for and hone in on with this series. Now, looking at it, matching up, I do like this series for the Raptors here. And if I'm gonna lay my claim to a series prediction, I'm gonna say Raptors in 6. I don't fully think this is a 7-game series. You know, a lot of people would think it is, and that's totally okay. I can see where they're coming from. But I think the Raptors really are marginally just good enough here that I don't think this series goes the full distance. I think Philly's star power is good enough to steal a game or 2. But other than that, I think the Raptors really should have some smooth sailing here, and I think they have a good chance to move on to the Eastern Conference Finals and face the winner of that Bucks-Celtics series. And yeah, that does it for me, folks. What are your thoughts on the Raptors matching up with the Sixers here? Who do you give the advantage to? Who do you see winning the series? Comment below. Let me know what you think. Other than that, if you like the video, you know, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. And other than that, folks, we are